Justin Saldarriaga, an immigration lawyer with Scott Legal PC in New York City. In this video, I'll be walking you through the TN visa and why it's one of the most popular visas for our neighbors in Canada and Mexico who want to live and work in the United States. To start off, let's talk a bit about what the TN visa lets you do and why so many people consider it. The TN visa was originally created through NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and was intended to be a way for nationals of Canada and Mexico to more easily enter the US to work for an employer there. The TN visa is one of the easiest visas to get, especially if you're Canadian. Canadians can actually ask for the visa at the port of entry, an airport or a land border crossing, and unlike Mexicans, Canadians don't need to visit a consulate beforehand. Once you receive the visa, you're allowed to stay in the US for up to 3 years at a time, and there's no limit to the number of times you can renew a TN visa. Sounds pretty good. So, what are the requirements for a TN visa? First, you must have an offer of employment from a US company. Second, you must be coming to the US to work in a profession that's listed in the NAFTA Regulations. If you haven't already, it's a good idea to take a look at the NAFTA TN occupation list, which we'll link to below. There, you'll find a long list of professions that qualify for a TN visa, along with the specific professional or educational credentials that each profession requires. Let's take an example. Someone applying for a TN visa as a management consultant would need either a baccalaureate degree, 5 years of experience as a management consultant, or 5 years of experience in a field of specialty that's related to the consulting agreement. A social worker, in contrast, must have a baccalaureate degree. A social worker cannot qualify based on their work experience alone. An important note, when the regulation states that a degree is required, the degree should be in a field that's the same or closely related to the profession. So someone applying for a TN visa as a social worker should have a degree in social work or a related field. When you apply for a TN visa, you would need to provide a letter from the employer that explains the terms of your employment in the US, your job duties, qualifications, and how those fit with the employer's business. The letter must have the employer's original signature and their contact information. You would also provide supporting documents showing that you qualify for the specific occupation, whether that's by your education or your professional background. Keep in mind that the government officer will want to see original documents. If you're qualifying by education, for example, be sure to bring your original diploma. Officers can be very picky about this. You'll notice that I haven't said much about the employer's requirements. That's because there's not much that the employer needs to do for a TN visa application. The TN visa does not require that the employer sponsor the employee as they would for, say, an H-1B visa. As a result, unlike other visas like the H-1B, the employer does not need to pay a prevailing wage, doesn't need to pay the visa application fees, doesn't need to worry about whether the employee is inactive while they're in the US, and doesn't need to pay for the employee to fly home if their employment ends. In other words, employing an employee on a TN visa doesn't create any additional obligations on the employer beyond the local and federal employment laws that apply when any other employee is hired. So how do you apply for a TN visa? The process is different for Canadians and Mexicans. Canadians can apply for the visa at a port of entry, for example, an airport or when they cross the border by land. They would need to bring their job offer letter and supporting documents showing they satisfy the work or education requirements. There's a small fee they'd pay, and the border officer will approve or deny the application on the spot after a brief interview. Nationals of Mexico, since they can't apply at the port of entry but must instead apply at a consulate, would submit a Form DS-160 online and attend a visa interview at the consulate once they've received an invitation to do so. After the interview, the visa will either be approved or denied. One point worth noting is that TN visas issued to Mexican nationals are usually valid for 1 year, while TN visas issued to nationals of Canada are usually issued for 3 years. However, upon entry to the US, anyone with a TN visa, whether they're Mexican or Canadian, usually receives TN status in the US for 3 years. Mexicans and Canadians who are already inside the US have the option to apply for a change of status to TN status through US Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS. They can do that instead of visiting a consulate or applying at a port of entry if they are Canadian. Applying for a change of status through USCIS is also a relatively straightforward process, but given how easy it is to apply either at the consulate or a port of entry, USCIS is usually a less attractive option. In conclusion, if you're a citizen of Mexico or Canada and you're looking to work in the US, the TN visa can be a great option worth considering. It's easy to apply for, can be renewed, and it puts minimal obligations on the employer. We hope this video was helpful, and if it was, please go ahead and click the like and subscribe buttons below to stay updated on future videos about visa options and travel to the US. Thanks for watching.